Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with Jackie Koenen, who is Director of Operations, Global Marketing Communications with Benefit Cosmetics. Thanks so much for being with me here today, Jackie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we're gonna talk today about building a global marketing team. And so before we kind of talk about that kind of stuff, I'd just like to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about your role and maybe a little bit about Benefit Cosmetics.
Yeah, great. So Benefit Cosmetics, I work at the global headquarters, which is in San Francisco, California, which is
Hmm.
where the beauty brand was started many years ago. So my position is Director of Global Marketing and Communications,
Hmm.
which sounds very complicated, but my nickname is the Money Honey internally, which is always amusing when you
What
get
does that mean?
in a meeting, which is fascinating. So we're a global cosmetics company. We do brow services, which is very unique to our brand, and we pride ourselves on instant beauty solutions. And I love our brand motto is, laughter is the best cosmetic. So if you sort of frame that into a company, it's a pretty fun place to work. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
that's fabulous. I love that. Um, and and how long have you been with Benefit?
About 4.5 years
Okay.
within the global marketing team. So
Yeah.
it's grown quite a bit since I joined, which is really exciting. We
Right.
can talk about what that looks like as a team structure in
Sure.
a bit.
And where did you come from? Like, what allowed you to get a role like this with Benefit?
Yeah, I think they took a chance on me because I didn't have any prior beauty experience, but I did have a lot of experience with in the tech companies, Apple and Google, and a sort of wide range of experience on the agency world. So I think
Mm.
they took a chance on me and said, "Hey, I think she could bring some different perspective to our beauty group." And I was lucky enough to come in and work with some people from my past,
Mm.
and it was a great fit.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's a great segue into my first question. So, you worked in agencies, you worked on the client side. What is the benefit for maybe even a young new marketer from choosing a path on agency or client side?
Yeah, it's a great way to look at sort of entering the workforce. So those two types of organizations are so different, and they have pluses and minuses, I think, for both. So I think I'll talk about agencies first. So I started my career in agencies, digital advertising mostly, so a little less traditional, but more digital, with a mix of design and project management, just to get my foot in the door, and then
Hmm.
have moved more to production management over the years. So I think the best part about working at an agency, and also the most challenging, is that you get exposed to a huge range of products,
Mm.
industries, companies, and it's your job to get up to speed as quickly as possible on that
Right.
brand or that client, so that you can be helpful. So it's really great for someone coming into the workforce who maybe doesn't know what they want to do or what kind of company they want to work for. Are you
Mm.
interested in automotive? Is it wine and spirits? Is it financial technology? And so by working at an agency, you get exposed to all those different types of companies,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. I love that kind of allows you to get that variety, and allows you to to make some career decisions. So I like that.
Yeah.
With your role at Benefit, what does your team look like? How big is it? How many people are you overseeing? What are some of the roles of these individuals in your team?
Yeah, so our team is, as I mentioned, ever growing. So our global marketing team, we're about 45 people right now, with a bunch of open headcount, and our team has such a varying degree of experiences and training, and I'll try to
Mm.
name all of them, and I'm probably going to miss some. So we have visual designers, we have writers, we have marketing strategists, data analysts, we have
Hmm.
public relations specialists. We have project managers, we have e-commerce and development teams, and there's more. They're just running out of my mind right now. But I'll remember some in an hour from now. But what that allows us to do is sort of look at the entire marketing process and say we're going to be involved in the strategy, the production, the creation, and then the launch support of our products and our brand campaigns when they go out the door. So it's a really unique situation, especially I believe at our beauty brand, is that we have all of those roles and those expertise in house. So it really is 360 in
Right.
terms of our marketing organization.
So when you're looking at this team, are you guys looking at, okay, we're going to do this campaign, this project, and we want to launch it this way in Japan and this way in the UK, this way in the States, or do you typically with the global team launch the same campaign the same way around the globe?
No, it's a great question. We have a very strong brand. So what we try to do is we try to create globally branded campaigns, whether it's for a mascara launch or it's a new service. So we try to do it at a global level because we think our brand is very strong. And we also want the messaging to be consistent across the board and across each market and each country. But we also have to take in advance or into consideration is that sometimes markets are very different. Consumers are different. Sometimes they're different age segments or groups. So sometimes that message has to be tweaked a little bit.
Right.
Or we decide that we want to lean a little bit heavier on like influencers or brow experts in that market or region to really make that
Mm,
launch come alive. So there
right.
is a good level of localization that we look
And,
for when
and
we're launching.
and language as well, or is it always in English?
Oh, no, language as well. So we'll work with the local teams to make sure the content is translated, but then also trans-created so that the brand and the voice of Benefit is actually translated locally so that it makes sense.
Right.
Because our brand is very unique, so it doesn't always it's not always a one-for-one translation. So.
Sure. Yeah, you don't want to be the next meme, do you?
No, exactly. I mean, when it's in our favor, maybe, but when it goes wrong, not so
Right.
much. So, yeah.
So when you go about building a global marketing team, how does one do such an ominous task?
You have to look for talented people, and you also have to have the leadership there who is really willing to build the team. And so we've been lucky over the past couple of years to have our current leader and our former leader really focusing on building that team
Right.
from the ground up. And I think their vision was, if we can bring all of these different types of roles and expertise, writers, designers, analysts, marketers, if we can bring them in house and build a really
Hmm.
strong team, it's going to serve our brand better. And
Right.
so it's just been, over the past, even since I've been there, just slowly adding different expertise and talent to build out our organization. So it's a very slow process.
Right.
But it's great when it happens, when it's, fully full.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So when maybe a new marketer is looking at, we kind of talked about um, agencies and client side. What about what is the difference working for a small company or something that's quite large like Benefit?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So smaller companies, I think, is a great way to start your career, especially since we're talking, to your students who are going to be coming out of university soon. When you work with a smaller company, you are able to sort of take on additional roles, because it's not always you're doing one exact role. You're probably doing a few different types of roles put together. So you pick up these ancillary skills and you get more exposure to the
Mm,
broader business. So by being able to work in a small company, you're probably going to learn and grow a lot faster if you
mm,
were to join a much larger company.
right.
So on the flip side of that, I would say, in a larger company, if you think about like joining a Google versus joining, an agency of 25 people, it also is a great experience, but if you know exactly where you want to focus. So if you have
Right.
come in and you say, I want to go full headstrong into social media marketing, or I want to go right into data science,
Yeah.
you can find a role and you can go deep and you can
Yeah.
really get specialized
Yeah.
inside that organization. But if you're not
Right.
quite there, you might want to just take a step back and get more exposure to a brand or a company so you can figure out what you want to do and where you want to go next.
Is that what you did? Did you start with small brands and then kind of work your way through to larger brands?
I did. I started, in the agency world in a very small agency when it was, 4 or 5 people. And so
Hmm.
it allowed me to wear a few different hats. I
Right.
was doing office management, design, and project management at the same time, which was great and fascinating. And then as I moved through my career, you start to maybe take a little bit more interest in a certain type of work. So I chose production management as where I'm interested in. So that's sort of my path, and now operations. So there's an evolution there.
Yeah,
Projects.
that's great.
Yeah.
So, I want to kind of ask you a little bit about hiring and what you look for. First, I want to kind of get an understanding briefly. When you're hiring, how important is it that the person you're hiring in marketing is interested in the brand? So, and I say that like from my perspective, like I don't know anything about your brand. I am probably not the type of person who's going to be using the products from your brand. How important is like hiring someone who's like, I love benefit, I want to wear the products and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a it's a great question. Um, I think no matter what brand or what company you're interviewing for, you should take an interest somehow. It doesn't mean that you have to be, a huge fan of the products or the brand, but you need to do your research. You need to understand what does the brand stand for. What is their motto? What types of products do they offer? What's their target audience? Do you know people who use their products and why do they love them or why do they not like them? So even if you're not a makeup or beauty user yourself, you do need to do the research and find out why do you want to work at a beauty company? Is it
Yeah,
because we're really advanced in AR technology with our brow try on? So is it because we have a really great retail experience and that's really interesting to you?
yeah,
Is it because you want to work for a company that's based in San Francisco, for instance, because you love San Francisco? Whatever it is, and whatever brand or company you're trying to get a job at, you have to find some sort of connection that makes you want to work there.
right.
Because it does show through when you're interviewing as well, whether or not
Sure.
you're into it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's great. I just live 3 blocks away from the Lululemon headquarters, and it's interesting to me because I see people coming into the office, and I look at like this guy. I'm like, he's probably a developer in the IT side, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't do yoga, but something got him into the brand, even though
Yeah.
he's not maybe part of the target segment or a user. And I think that's a great way to frame kind of how you explain that as far as working for a brand that maybe you're not interested in the product itself. I like that.
Yeah.
So when you're what do you look for when you're hiring a marketer? Soft skills, hard skills, certifications, like what's important to you?
Yeah, and this is really interesting. I actually put this question out to our team a few weeks ago because I knew we were going to speak again, Jared, and I wanted to get a little bit of insight from a broader audience. And the responses that came back were a mixed bag of everything. So I'll give you just a summary of kind of the
Yeah,
information
give
that
me the
came
list.
back. Yeah, I have like a little short list I wrote down because I don't want to mess this up. And so when we talk about marketing certificates or certifications, which you and I spoke about a little bit before. Again, mixed reactions across the board. So we had a few, members of our team who said like, "Hey, Google Analytics is great. It's a nice to have. You can keep up with it. Renew your certificate every couple of years, and it's great." But then most of our marketing team have said like, "Hey, we're self-taught. If we needed to go learn something, we went out and taught ourselves." And then applied it back into our job. So a really sort of flip of the coin there
Yeah,
in terms of certificates. But our team was really, our focus on like, if there's online learning platforms that people are interested in, like go to Skillshare, go to Lynda, go to Udacity,
yeah,
and just dig into what you're interested in. And then
yeah,
talk about that if you're in an interview. Just, say to somebody like, I took a marketing course on Lynda and it was great. Or I took a course on Skillshare about social media marketing and this is what I learned.
yeah,
So whether or not you have a piece of paper or a certificate, eh, maybe not as important anymore.
yeah. Well, that's interesting. Um, and what about I guess what kind of like soft traits or personality traits are you looking for in a marketer? Like, do you care if they're like really into social media, if they're going to work in social media? Is that important to you? Things like that.
Yeah, I think the more specialized the role that you're applying for, you probably need to have a little bit, at least be able to speak to your interests in social media, or talk about what interests you, where your focus is, people you follow. So if you're going to go for a social media role, tailor your interview, your responses to that role. If you're just sort of coming into marketing, as a newbie and you don't have a ton of experience, what I look for on resumes is, do you have applicable skills? Have you worked somewhere? Maybe it's not in beauty, but did you work somewhere and you did pick up skills about organizing teams or working on campaigns or working on projects? And that's
Mm,
what I want to hear about. So I can read a resume, I can look at years or experience, I can look at certificates and hard skills, soft
yeah,
skills, education. But when I'm talking to somebody, I want to know, what do you want to do in your next role? Why did you pick
right.
benefit? What are you interested in?
Mm,
And then have that conversation instead of, a one for one skills conversation.
yeah, well, that's great. Um, so when we're looking at trends, and I think that, I mean, it seems like cosmetics and beauty, if there is an industry that is benefits from or maybe does not benefit from trends, I think this may be the industry, especially with the power of TikTok videos and stuff like that. So how do you, as a marketer, stay current with what's happening when, I mean, it's almost impossible to figure out, it's almost impossible to predict what the next thing is. So how do you stay current with all this stuff?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and I also reached out to our team for this because we have some really excellent social media marketers and digital marketers on our team. And the resources that our team uses, we read the New York Times, we read Glossy, Business of Fashion. So if you want to like put those in your feed or earmark them, I highly recommend it. So
Mm,
that's really great. And then Emily from our team, who's director of marketing, also gave this really interesting tidbit of information. She reads and follows TechCrunch, but then she also reads blogs of social media management software companies like Hootsuite, We Are Social, to sort of glean from an industry or a platform perspective and a
yeah,
measurement perspective what's happening.
yeah,
So the team is constantly like pulling articles, sharing, reading, which is really great. So it's really just
yeah.
about getting involved and immersed into
Mm,
existing or emerging platforms and technologies and finding out what's working or what's
yeah.
not working. What do you like or dislike about it? And that's really where most of the research stems from. So.
And would you say also that you're maybe not just interested in what's happening in beauty, but what is happening in luxury cars or what's
Oh
happening
yeah.
in, I don't know, other stuff like that?
Oh yeah, of course. Absolutely. And a lot of the research that we do is not just in the beauty segment. We look everywhere and see what's happening. What's happening in the shoe industry. What is Nike doing, for instance?
Right.
What is Apple doing? So we look across the board in terms of technologies, and we go industry agnostic, if you will, and we
Right.
say what's new, what's hot, what's working. Um, and then we take a look at our own brand and say, does that make sense for us? Does that feel benefit? Is this where our customer is?
Yeah.
And if it's not, maybe it's something we don't dive into.
Yeah.
So,
I used to work at the for Four Seasons hotels and resorts, and that was important to us. And I like how you say kind of like industry agnostic. Like, yeah, we wanted to understand what was happening in fashion and cosmetics and
yeah,
luxury cars and whatever to allow us to understand how our target segment was engaging in other brands, other industries, and things like that. So that when we spoke to them, we knew what to talk about, or when we were launching a new product or a campaign, we were able to engage in a way that was meaningful to them, which is great.
exactly.
Innovation was important. So, what does innovation look like at Benefit? And maybe this was kind of how we'll wrap things up here.
Sure. Yeah, this is great. So our head of marketing, his name is Toto Hapa. He's my boss. He always says, and this is sort of like our mantra, is like, our goal for us to succeed. In when we talk about innovation, our goal to succeed is 25% wins and 75% failures. And it always makes me laugh, especially when you're presenting this to other leadership, and They're not quite sure what to think of it. I think it's great. The fact that, you need the room to fail, you need the room
Uh-huh.
to experiment and try things, and some things will fall flat, some things will
Wow.
succeed, or some things will just, you'll just glean a little bit of information or a little bit of insight.
Yeah.
And then you'll keep testing it. So, the team is constantly, pushing the limits of, like, are we trying out a different marketing technique? Are we playing with a different ad platform or some sort of ad testing? And we'll try it in a single market, right, or single country, and we'll say, does it work? Does it not work? And if it's
Yeah.
something that works, then we'll see, like, does it make sense to scale it across, all the other countries or markets, or even like consumer groups, like age groups, for instance. So it's
Yeah.
always a test and learn situation with our marketing team.
25%. That is brilliant. So I'm thanks to you, I'm going to be interviewing him, I think next week, and I'm
Oh,
gonna
really?
this is going to be a great this is going to be a great conversation about the 25%. I want to hear more about that from him and his views on
You
that.
should
That's super interesting.
definitely ask him, because he puts it on like slides sometime, and it makes some people uncomfortable, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. So I'm really thrilled that you get to speak to Toto
That's
soon.
great.
So that's great.
Awesome. Well, Jackie, it's been excellent chatting with you. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I think I've learned a whole lot, and I'm sure many others will who have the opportunity to do this. So thanks so much for being with me here today.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you.